Hello and welcome back to another video brought to you by Dorkdom Gaming. In today's video we're going to be talking about the brand new Blades of Khorne. We're going to be discussing all of the brand new allegiance abilities, all the brand new command traits, everything that has to do with artifacts of power. We're going to be talking about the banners of Khorne, the trophies of war. We're going to be talking about the demonic gifts with the demonic weapons, even the demonic adornments. We're even going to go as far as talking about the brand new blood blessings of Khorne, and on top of that, we're going to also discuss all the brand new battalions that come in this faction. So the most important part of this new book is the allegiance ability. They call it the blood for the blood god. Now the way it works is a Khorne army generates blood tithes points during the course of each battle. The controlling player must keep a record of how many points their army accrues. A blood tithe point is generated each time a unit belonging to either player is wiped out. So whether your opponent loses a unit or you use a unit, you're going to gain a blood tithe. The maximum number of the blood tithe points your army can have at any one point in time is 8. Additional points generated are just lost. Now, blood tithe points can be expended at any point during either player's hero phase, but only once per phase. To do so, pick one reward on the blood tithe table, which we're about to talk about, that is either equal to the number of blood, I'll just call them points at this point, blood points that you have, or lower, and you can basically expend it. So hypothetically, there's 8 abilities you can pick from, and let's say you had 5 points, right? And you wanted to use the ability number 3. So you'll say in the beginning of either your opponent's hero phase or your hero phase, you're going to use the third ability, which they call Murder Lust. And you have 5 points, but you're going to use the ability 3. So you say you're using 3. Now, the ability goes off, but you also lose all of the points that you gained. Now, you can, of course, throughout the game gain more, but it's good to remember that if you decide to use a lower value, even if you have more points, you're going to lose all the points after you pick that trait, I guess. So without further ado, let's actually go through all 8 of the actual abilities that you'll use your blood tithes for. The first ability is select a Khorne hero from your army that has a command ability on the war scroll and immediately use the command ability. If the model is your general, they can use another command ability as normal. So that's the first one. Now, if you have 2 points, you can actually use this one. Choose this reward immediately after the wizard has cast a spell anywhere on the battlefield. It is automatically unbound, and you may not choose this reward after having attempted to unbind the spell. So if you already tried to unbind it, you can't use this, but let's say you had 2 points, or 2 blood tithes, and you're like, you know what, you cast a spell anywhere on the table, that spell's going away, and you lost all your points for that turn. Now, let's say you've gained 3 points, and you want to use the next one, which is the Murder Lust. Select a Khorne unit from your army. That unit can either move as if it was in the movement phase, or charge as if it was in the charge phase. And that's the third one. Now, the fourth one, if you had 4 blood tithe points, it would be roll a d3. All Khorne models on the battlefield immediately heal that many wounds. All right, that's for the fourth. The fifth one is select a Khorne unit from your army. That unit can immediately pile in and attack as if it was in the combat phase. Right, that's the number 5. Number 6 is pick a single unit anywhere on the battlefield. That unit immediately suffers d3 mortal wounds. In addition, roll a dice for each unit within 8 inches of that unit. You can pick. On a roll of a 4 or more, that unit being rolled for suffers a mortal wound. All right, so that's number 6. The number 7 is Relentless Fury. Now, until your next hero phase, each time a Khorne model in your army is slain in the combat phase, you can immediately pile and move and attack with that model before you remove it. Use the lowest line of the damage table. It has one on the war scroll. So if, let's say it's a Bloodthirster and it reduces the amount of attacks, you have to use the lowest level. And that's the number 7. The number 8 is set up a new Khorne demon unit anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from any models. This unit cannot move in the following movement phase. Now, the only issue with that is in most match play games, you would actually have to, pay for those points. And you're also wasting or utilizing 8 of your blood tithe points. So again, to reiterate, there's 8 abilities. As soon as you start gaining these points as units are dying, as soon as you use the ability, you lose all the points. But then, of course, the next turn you can start generate additional blood tithe points. So that is the allegiance ability for the Blades of Khorne. Alright, so the next thing we need to choose is command traits. Now, command traits are an addition to your command ability, but you got to be careful because all named special characters in this book cannot take command traits. Only heroes that currently are not special characters. So the way the command traits work is depending on if you are a Khorne demon or if you're a Khorne bloodbound or Khorne mortal, you would pick the corresponding chart. So if you're bloodbound, you have 6 choices of command traits. If you're Khorne, you have Khorne demons, you have 6. If you're Khorne mortals, you have 6. So we're going to go through each one. Now, some of them are the same. I believe the first 3 are actually the same on all 3. Yeah, the first 3 are the same on all 3. So I'm going to read you, one time, and then it's the same for all 3. Then we're going to go individually 4, 5, 6. So the first we're going to do is the Bloodbound, Khorne Bloodbound. You want to, for the first one, it's called Arch Slaughter. You generate 1 additional blood type point each time your general slays an enemy hero or monster. And again, that's the same for all 3. The second one is Unraveled Battle Lust. If your general is within 12 inches of an enemy unit, but not within 3 inches of an enemy unit, at the end of any of your opponent's charge phases, you can immediately attempt a charge move with your general, right? And again, that is with all 3 of the command traits for all 3, depending on what you are. Now, the next one is called Slaughterborne. Now, that one is you can re-roll all of your general's failed hit rolls when you're making attacks in the combat phase. And again, that's for all 3. Now, here's where they all separate. So we're going to stick with Khorne Bloodbound. Mark of Cannibal. If your general slays 1 or more enemy models in the combat phase, they heal 1 wound at the end of the phase. The 5th one is Khorne mortal units from your army within 8 inches of your general can use your general's bravery characteristic in place of their own when making battle shock test. Okay. The 6th one is add 1 to your attack characteristics of all melee weapons wielded by your general, quotations, but not any weapons used by your mount if they have one. Okay, so that is for the Khorne Bloodbound. Now we're going to go to the Khorne Demon. Again, the first 3 are the same, so I'm not going to repeat it. We're going to go right to the 4th one. The 4th one is add 1 to all damage characteristics of all melee weapons wielded by your general, but again, quotations, but not weapons wielded by your mount if you have one. The 5th one is each time an enemy unit within 8 inches of your general fails a battle shock test, 1 additional model flees from this unit. Okay, and the 6th one is any rolls of a 6 for attacks made by your general in the combat phase inflict a number of mortal wounds equal to the weapon's damage characteristics instead of being resolved as normal. The next one are Khorne Mortal. Again, the first 3 are the same, so I'm going to go right to the 4th one, which is you can re-roll all hit and wound rolls of 1 for your general when attacking enemy heroes or monsters. The 5th one is roll a dice each time your general suffers an unsaved wound or mortal wound in the combat phase. On a roll of 5 or 6, the wound or mortal wound is ignored. The 6th one would be you can re-roll failed charge rolls for your general and your Khorne units from this army if they are within 8 inches of him at the start of the charge phase. And again, guys, so these are all the command traits you can pick from as long as it's not a special character. You would utilize the list depending on what kind of character you have, whether you are a Khorne Bloodbound, Khorne Demon, or Khorne Mortal. Now, if you fall into multiple sections, like let's say you're a Khorne Demon Mortal, if that was a thing, or a Khorne Mortal Bloodbound, you would have to pick which one you want. You don't get 2 additional traits on top of your command ability. Alright, so the next section is going to be the Artifacts of Power, basically special items. Now, if you are taking a Khorne Mortal Hero, you can take the Artifacts of Power. Now, if you're taking a Khorne Bloodbound, then you're going to be using a different table, which is going to be the Trophies of War. And of course, if you're a Bloodbound hero that carries a totem, then they would actually pick from the Banners of Khorne, which will be on another page we're going to talk about. Now, most importantly, you want to be aware of, let's say you have multiple battalions. Then for each battalion you can actually give one of your heroes a Artifacts of Power. But if you don't have any battalions or anything of that nature, only one of your heroes can have an Artifact of Power. Now, these Artifacts of Powers, there are 6 of them, and you just basically pick which one you want if you're playing a match play, or if you want to roll the dice, you could. The first one is Heartseeker, and pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be the Heartseeker. You can re-roll failed wound rolls for this weapon. All right, so the next one is the bearer can attempt to unbind 1 spell in each of your enemy's hero phase in the same manner as if it was a wizard. The next one is Pick one of this hero's melee weapons to be the Blood Drinker. At the end of any combat phase in which the bearer inflicts any unsaved wounds or mortal wounds with this weapon, they can immediately heal one wound lost earlier in the battle. Okay. The fourth one, or the next one, is pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be the Gor Cleaver. Attacks from the Gor Cleaver inflict an additional -1 rend. For an example, if you have a rend -1, it would become a rend -2. In addition, any wounds rolls of a 6 made with this weapon inflict a number of mortal wounds equal to the weapon's damage characteristics instead of being normally resolved. The fifth artifact is you can reroll save rolls of 1 for the bearer. The last one, or the sixth one, is you can generate 1 additional blood tithe point each time the bearer of the blood rune slays an enemy hero. So again, these are artifacts of power, abilities, or items you can put on your general as long as your general is not a special character and it falls within the Khorne mortal heroes. Alright, so the next section we're going to talk about is Khorne Bloodbound Heroes. The first part will be for the Khorne Bloodbound Heroes that are carrying the totem. So in addition to the ability of the banner, you also get to pick an additional ability on top of that. So there's 3 of them, so we're going to go through each one. The first one is you can re-roll hit rolls of 1 in the combat phase for any Khorne models from your army that are within 8 inches of the bearer. If the affected model already has the ability to do this, you can reroll all failed hit rolls for that model instead. Okay, so again, this is in addition to your regular banner ability. The next one is, in each of your hero phases, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 8 inches. On a roll of a 4 or more, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. The next ability, or the last ability, is you can reroll failed charge rolls for Khorne units from your army that are within 8 inches of the bearer at the start of the charge phase. So again, these are basically Khorne Bloodbound heroes that are carrying a totem, get an additional ability on top of their regular ability. Now, if you are a Khorne Bloodbound hero who's not like carrying a totem, then you actually get to pick from the Trophies of War, and there's also 6 of them. So we're going to go through each one. The first one is, your opponent must add 1 to the result of any battle shock test they take for units that are within 8 inches of the bearer. Okay. The next one is when you make save rolls for the bearer, ignore the enemy's rend characteristic unless it's -2 or better. Okay. The next one is roll a dice each time the bearer suffers any unsaved wounds or mortal wounds as a result of a spell. On a roll of a 2 or more, the wound or mortal wound being rolled for this is ignored. Once per game, you can choose to expand the rune's power to automatically unbind 1 enemy spell, after which the brazen rune will no longer have any effect. The fourth ability is, pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be the Blade of Endless Bloodshed. At the end of any combat phase in which the bearer slew 1 or more enemy models with this weapon, you generate 1 blood tithe point in addition to any others you generated during this phase. The fifth ability is, double the attack characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons, quotations, but not their mounts. However, such is a fine line between risk and reward that should be the bearers make any attacks in the combat phase, but fail to slay enemy models, the bearer is immediately slain. Remove the model from play and replace it with the Chaos Spawn under your control. Set up the model as near as possible to the model you removed, quotation, even if this is within 3 inches of an enemy model. It cannot make any attacks this turn. But be aware, if you do this, you double your attacks, which is great. If you don't kill any models, you become a spawn, but if you didn't save any points, like I think it's 60 points for a spawn, if you didn't save any points, you actually can't do it because you need those, you need reserve points to do that. The last ability, or sixth ability, is add 1 to any run rolls you make for the bearer and any other Khorne units from the army that are within 8 inches of them at the start of the movement phase. In addition, add 1 to the charge rolls you make for the bearer of any Khorne units from your army that are within 8 inches of them during the start of the charge phase. So again, the first one was the Banners of Khorne for Bloodbound heroes that have totems or banners, and the other Trophies of War are for your Khorne Bloodbound heroes that do not carry banners. And you just pick whichever one you want. Alright, so the next one is going to be demonic gifts. Now, demonic gifts are broken down into 2 categories. It's either demonic weapons or it's demonic adornments. Now, if you are a demon hero, this is where you would pick whatever you want, and you actually get to pick an additional demonic gift for each Warscroll Battalion you take. But again, if you don't have any battalions, then you only get to pick one of your generals or heroes that can have a demonic gift. Now, demonic gifts are treated as the same as artifacts, and the purpose of you can only have one, except you can have one for each Warscroll Battalion. So we're going to start with demonic weapons, and then we're going to go to the demonic adornments. Now, for demonic weapons, there's 6 of them, and you get to pick which one you want. So the first one is, pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be Gorath, the King of Blades. This weapon always hits enemy hero models on a roll of a 2 or more. The next ability is, pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be the Death Dealer. Add 1 to the damage characteristics of this weapon. The next ability, or next weapon, would be, pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be the, Gorath, the Bloodhunger. Each time an enemy hero or monster suffers any unsaved wounds or mortal wounds from this weapon, it's locked in time and cannot attack until all other units have made their attacks in that phase. That's kind of interesting. The next weapon, or the fourth one, is, pick one of your bearer's melee weapons to be the Hellfire Blade. Wound rolls of a 6 with this weapon causes a mortal wound in addition to their normal damage. The fifth weapon is, pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be a Harvester of Skulls. Add 1 to the attacks characteristics of this weapon. The sixth weapon is, pick one of your hero's melee weapons to be the Behemoth Bane. You can reroll any failed wound rolls and choose to reroll all damage rolls when attacking enemy monsters with this weapon. Now again, these are 6 weapons you can pick for your Khorne demon heroes, and if you have more than one battalion, you can pick an additional hero to have more demonic gifts. The next section, or the next demonic gifts, will be called demonic adornments. Now there are also 6 of them, and the first one is, when making attacks with the bearer, and any Khorne demon models from your army that are within 8 inches of them in the combat phase, you can make 1 additional attack with that model for each hit roll of a 6 you make. Any bonus attacks made in this manner or the same weapon do not generate an additional attacks themselves. The second ability is, each time the bearer suffers a wound or a mortal wound, roll a dice. On a 6, the wound or a mortal wound is ignored. Add 1 to the roll of the wound or mortal wound if you suffer damage from spells, it's a 5 or 6. If you just suffer damage from a non-spell, it's a 6. The third ability is, each time the bearer of the Mark of Blood Reaper inflicts 8 or more unsaved wounds or mortal wounds in a single combat phase, you generate 1 blood tithe point in addition to any others you generate that phase. It seems like there's lots of ways of generating more blood tithe points, which is really cool. So that's the third one. So the fourth one is, the bearer can attempt to unbind 1 spell in each of your enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. The fifth ability is, the bearer immediately heals D3 wounds lost earlier in battle each time they slay an enemy hero in the combat phase. The sixth ability, or the last one, is, you can re-roll hit rolls of a 1 in the combat phase for the bearer and all Khorne units within 8 inches of them at the start of the combat phase. If the bearer charged earlier in the turn, you can also re-roll wound rolls of a 1 in the combat phase for the bearer and all Khorne units within 8 inches of them at the start of the combat phase. Now again, these are demonic gifts which are broken down into 2 sections, demonic weapons and demonic adornments. Now you can only have 1 per a Warscroll Battalion. So the next section is going to be about the blood blessings of Khorne, which has to do with the Khorne priest. Now the way this works, in addition to the prayers you already know, you get to pick 1 of these additional prayers out of the 6. Now the way casting prayers work is you roll a dice. On a 4 or more, the prayer is answered. If you happen to roll a 1, however, your priest suffers D3 mortal wounds, but you have the ability of actually doing it on a 3 or more if your priest slew any models in the previous turn. So again, there's 6 prayers, and you can pick which one you want. So we're going to go one by one. The first one is, if this prayer is successful, pick either the priest or a Khorne unit from your army that is within 16 inches of the priest and which is visible to them. You can add 1 to the save rolls of the unit you picked until the start of your next hero phase. The next prayer is, if the prayer is successful, pick either the priest or the Khorne unit from your army that is within 3 inches of the priest. The unit you picked immediately suffers D3 mortal wounds, but you gain 1 blood tithe point. The next ability is, if this prayer is successful, pick either the priest or a Khorne hero from your army that is within 16 inches of the priest and which is visible to them. The model you picked immediately heals D3 wounds lost earlier in the battle. The fourth one is, if the prayer is successful, pick a Khorne unit from your army that is within 16 inches of the priest and which is visible to them. The unit you picked does not have to take Battleshock test until until your next hero phase. The fifth one is, if the prayer is successful, pick either the priest or a Khorne unit from your army that is within 16 inches of the priest and which is visible to them. Add 1 to the hit rolls of the unit you picked until your next hero phase. The last one, or the sixth one, is, if the prayer is successful, then until your next hero phase, the priest can attempt to unbind 1 additional spell in the enemy's hero phase as the same manner as if it was a wizard. So again, these prayers are for if you have a Khorne priest, and for every Khorne priest you get to pick an additional one of these, and then you just have to pray. It is now time to talk about all of the Warscroll battalions, and man, there is a lot. So I guess we'll start with this one. So the first one's going to be called Blood Hunt. Now the way this works is you have to take in your organizational chart, when you're building your list, you have to take specific things in order to take this battalion. And when you take this battalion, you get special abilities. On top of paying for these war scrolls or these units, you're going to also have to pay for the Blood Hunt battalion, and that's the way Warscroll battalions work. So in order to take this battalion, you need to have at least 1 Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster or Karnak. And then you also have to have between 3 to 8 units chosen in any of these combinations, which are either Flesh Hounds or Blood Crushers. Now the abilities. The first ability is, when Khorne marks a victim for death, the Blood Hunt will not stop until the skulls belongs to the Infernal Master. After setup, pick an enemy hero to receive the Khorne's blood mark. At the start of each of your hero phase, you can roll 2 dice for each unit from the Blood Hunt that is not within 3 inches of enemy models, and move the unit being rolled for up to the total distance rolled in inches towards the hero with the blood mark, provided they are on the battlefield. So the way this works is you pick an enemy hero, and in your hero phase you roll 2 dice. And for each of these units that are within this battalion, you move that unit that many inches towards that model, the enemy hero you marked. It's almost like a free move in your hero phase. The next ability is Khorne's Hunters. Those that have displeased mighty Khorne are often fated to die beneath the claws and blades of the Blood Hunt. Add 1 to any wound rolls you make for models from the Blood Hunt when attacking enemy heroes. If the Blood Hunt contain the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, you can reroll all failed wound rolls you make for models from the battalion when they attack enemy heroes. Now, if you want to have the maximum, you have to have 3 to 8, which means you would have to have 8 units of either Flesh Hounds or Blood Crushers. And again, this Warscroll battalion is called the Blood Hunt. The next Warscroll battalion is called the Demon Legion of Khorne. Now, what this consists of is you actually have to take the Blood Host of Khorne, which is actually its own separate battalion. On top of that, you must take 3 to 8 other battalions. Now, out of the 3 to 8, you can choose from the following. The Murder Host, the Blood Thunder Stampede, the Cancel of Blood, the Blood Hunt, Gor Thunder Cohort, or the Charnel Host, or the Skullseeker Host. Now, this is almost like a battalion. You have to take a specific battalion and then take multiple battalions. You have to take a minimum of 4 battalions. I'm guessing at this point it's going to be a lot of points to do so, maybe in a bigger game. And that probably speaks to these really cool abilities you get if you do so. The abilities would be, if any units are wiped out during the combat phase, so any units, yours or theirs, you can add 1 to the attack characteristics of all melee weapons used by the Demon Legion of Khorne for the remainder of the combat phase. Wow, that's pretty powerful. Okay. The next ability is, you can immediately gain 1 blood tithe point at the start of each of your hero phases. So again, this is like you have to take 4 battalions in order to take this. And when you take 4 battalions, as we discussed earlier, you're going to get 4 artifacts or 4 demon gifts, demon gifts. What's the name of it? Gifts of demons, demons of gifts, whatever it might be. You get to pick 4 of those as well. And again, that is the Demon Legion of Khorne. Alright, so the next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Murder Host. Now, what the Murder Host consists of is 1 Bloodletter hero, and then 3 to 8 units chosen by you. And the list will be either Bloodletters, Flesh Hounds, Blood Crushers, or Skull Cannons. And the ability is, after setup has been completed, roll 2 dice for the Murder Host Bloodletter hero, and for each unit from the battalion that is within 8 inches of them, and move the unit being rolled for up to that total distance rolled in inches. If the murder host contains the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, you can repeat this process in each of your hero phases. So it looks like this ability is basically a free move in the beginning of your hero phase. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Bloodthunder Stampede. It consists of 1 Skull Mastered, or Herald of Khorne, and then 3 to 8 units of Blood Crushers. The ability is, if the Bloodthunder Stampede contain the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, which of course we know is 8 units of Blood Crushers, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of any units from the Bloodthunder Stampede in each of your hero phases. On a roll of a 2 or more, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds caused as they are crushed beneath the Juggernaut's herding stampede. Okay, great. The next ability is, if a pack of Juggernauts catches the scent of a freshly spilled blood, is driven into a frenzy. If any units in either army have been wiped out, the Bloodthunder Stampede add 3 to their charge roll. The next ability is, if a unit uses the Murderous Charge ability within 3 inches of another unit of Bloodthunder Stampede, you do not need to roll a dice. It automatically inflicts D3 mortal wounds, or D6 if the Blood Crusher unit includes 6 or more models, as enemies are trampled to a bloody pulp. This battalion's all about these Blood Crushers, 3 to 8 units of them. And you get tons of great abilities. Alright, so the next Warscroll Battalion has to be one of my favorites. It's called the Khorne Council of Blood, and it consists of 3 to 8 Bloodthirsters. And the abilities are, basically, Khorne respects only material strength in battle. And when his mightiest demons witness their rivals drawing to blood God's gaze in the slaughtering deeds, they will not hesitate to join the carnage to avoid being outdone. In each of your hero phases, pick 1 Bloodthirster from the Council of Blood to pile in and make attacks. If the Bloodthirster kills an enemy hero or a monster, or wipes out a unit in doing so, you can immediately pick another Bloodthirster from the Council of Blood to pile in and make their attacks. You can continue to do this until either each model in your battalion has attacked once in this manner, or one of them fails to slay an enemy hero or monster or wipe out a unit. That's amazing. Alright, so the next ability is, not only are Bloodthirsters nigh unstoppable adversaries, but they each serve as a commutative battlefield commander for the Khorne Demonic Legions. Each Bloodthirster from the Council of Blood can use their command ability on its war scroll in each of your hero phases, even if it's not your army's general. I love this. I mean, being able to have all of your Bloodthirsters use their command ability together, and also be able to, in the hero phase, pile into an enemy, attack them, and then hopefully wipe out a hero or a monster or a unit, and then pick another Bloodthirster that's within range to pile in, and have them pile in to attack. And this is all in your hero phase. So I definitely, I like the idea of taking 3 to 8 Bloodthirsters. That's pretty cool. Alright, so the next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Gor Thunder Cohort, and it consists of 1 Blood Throne and 3 to 8 units of Skull Cannons. The ability is, in each of your hero phases, D3 Skull Cannons from the Gor Thunder Cohort that are within 8 inches of their battalion Blood Throne can shoot as if it were in the shooting phase. If the Gore Thunder cohort contains the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, then all skull cannons that are within 8 inches of the battalion's blood throne can shoot as if it was in the shooting phase. This is quite interesting because being able to shoot your cannons in your hero phase and also in your shooting phase is quite ridiculous. The only concern would be to keep your blood throne alive so that you keep your ability going. But as it stands, being able to shoot twice is pretty awesome. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Blood Host of Khorne, and what it consists of is one Bloodthirster and 7 or more units chosen in any combination from the following: a Bloodletter Hero, a Bloodthirster, Bloodletters, Blood Crushers, Skull Cannons, and Fleshhounds. The abilities are: in each of your hero phases, pick D3 units from the Blood Host of Khorne that are within 3 inches of enemy. All models in that unit can immediately pile in and attack with one of their melee weapons. Increase the number of units that can attack from D3 to D6 if there are 16 or more units in this battalion at the start of the hero phases. So this is a great way of just getting multiple attacks. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Charnel Host. It consists of one Bloodthirster of Unfettering Fury, one Blood Master or Herald of Khorne, and then 3 to 8 units of Bloodletters. The ability is, or 2 abilities. The first one is, you can use the Rejoice in the Slaughter command ability of the Charnel Host Bloodthirster of Unfettering Fury in your hero phase, even if it's not your general. The next ability is, in each of your hero phases, you can pile in an attack with any units from the Charnel host that are within 8 inches of their battalion's Bloodthirster of Unfettering Fury at the start of the phase. So that's pretty cool. It seems like a lot of these abilities are piling in and getting an additional round of combat, which completely could wipe out an enemy unit or even their army if lucky enough. So this one's another one of those hit you in your mouth kind of Warscroll battalions. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Skullseeker Host. Now, this is one of my favorites. Again, what you need to take this is one Bloodthirster of Insistent Rage, one Blood Master or Herald of Khorne, 2 to 5 units of Blood Crushers, and then 1 to 3 units of Skull Cannons. You get 2 abilities. The first one is, if any units from the Skullseeker host are within 3 inches of enemy monsters at the start of your hero phase, they can immediately pile in, and each model in that unit can make a single attack against the monster with one of their melee weapons. The next ability is, in each of your hero phases, you can make a shooting attack with any skull cannons from your Skullseeker host that are within 8 inches of a Khorne hero from the same battalion. After resolving the attacks made in this manner, any other units in the same Skullseeker host can immediately attempt to charge any units that suffered any unsaved wounds from these attacks, and can attack as described in the Giant Killers if the units they charged is a monster. Alright, now it's time to talk about Warscroll Battalion battalions. So this Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne, the Reapers of Vengeance. And the way it works, or the organization of it, is you must contain the Blood Hunt Battalion. And inside the Blood Hunt Battalion, it must contain a Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster and units of Blood Crushers only. You may also take 3 to 8 Warscroll battalions chosen in any combination, right, from the following list: Blood Host of Khorne, Murder Host, Blood Thunder Stampede, Council of Blood, Blood Hunt, Gore Thunder, Cohort, Charnel Host, or the Skullseeker Host. Any number of additional Khorne demon units of the Warscroll battalions can be taken. If the Reaper of Vengeance contains the maximum number of battalions, it gains the Khorne Cares Not, from whence the blood flows, and Rival and Carnage abilities on page 100. Now, in order to take that ability, you'd have to play a super high point game, only because of the fact to take the maximum 8 battalions plus the Blood Hunt Battalion. That's pretty big. Now, there are 2 abilities. The first one is, after setup, Pick up to D3+1 enemy units. Note that they do not need to be heroes from your opponent's army to receive the Khorne's blood mark. At the start of each of your hero phases, you can roll 2 dice for each unit from the Reapers of Vengeance that is not within 3 inches of an enemy model, and move that unit being rolled for up to the total distance rolled in inches towards the unit with the mark of blood, provided they are not on the battlefield. The next ability is Unstoppable Charge. When the Juggernauts of the Reapers of Vengeance crash into enemy lines, their foes fall like wheat before the scythe. Units of Blood Crushers from the Reapers of Vengeance inflict D3 mortal wounds as a result of their Murderous Charge ability on a roll of a 2+ instead of the natural 4+. So again, you have to take an average between 4 to 9 battalions to get those 2 abilities, because it says you must take the Bloodhunt Battalion, and then you must take 3 to 8 Warscroll Battalions from the following list provided. Alright, so the next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne the Bloodlords. Now, the organization for this is you must take 1 Murder Host Battalion, which must contain 1 Bloodletter hero, and 3 to 8 units of Bloodletters and Blade Crushers. You also must take between 3 to 8 Warscroll Battalions chosen in any combination from the following list: Blood Host of Khorne, Murder Host, Blood Thunder Stampede, Council of Blood, Blood Hunt, Gore Thunder Cohort, Charnel's Host, or the Skullseeker Host. Any number of additional Khorne Demon units or Warscroll Battalions as well. If the Bloodlord contains the maximum number of battalions, it gains the Khorne Cares Not from Whence the Blood Flows and Rival in Carnage ability on page 100. Now you get 2 abilities. The first one is any Bloodletter heroes from the Bloodlords that are within 3 inches of enemy models at the start of your hero phase can immediately pile in and attack as if it was in the combat phase. The next ability is, if any units of the Bloodletters and or Blood Crushers from the Bloodlords are within 8 inches of any of the battalion's Bloodletter heroes at the start of your hero phase, they can immediately pile in, and each model in the unit can make a single attack with one of their melee weapons. Wow, there are just so many different ways of, they reward you so heavily with getting into combat. And then once it's your command ability, or your command phase, your hero phase, it's time to pile in and do some damage before you even really start doing anything. That's pretty cool. And now it's time to talk about the Warscroll Battalions that belong to the Bloodbound. Now this Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Bloodbound War Horde. Now what it consists of is 1 Mighty Lord of Khorne, or Lord of Khorne on a Juggernaut, or Scar, Bloodwrath, or Valkia, the Bloody. Also includes the Gore Chosen, also includes 1 Bloodbound Warband, and also includes 3 to 7 other Warscroll Battalions chosen in any combination from the following: Bloodbound Warband, Bloodforge, Brass Stampede, Dark Feast, Gor Pilgrims, Red Headsman, or the Slaughterborne, or the Skullseeker. Now, if you happen to take, we'll call this a battalion of battalions, you get 2 additional abilities. The first one is, if any units are wiped out during the combat phase, you can add 1 to the attack characteristics of all melee weapons used by the Bloodbound War Horde for the remainder of the combat. The next ability is, units from the Bloodbound War Horde can attempt to unbind 1 spell, quotations, or 1 additional spell if they could already do so, in each enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. If a Mighty Lord of Khorne or Slaughter Priest from the War Horde successfully unbinds a spell, you can immediately earn 1 Blood Tithe point. And again, this battalion is the Khorne Bloodbound War Horde. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Gore Chosen. It consists of 1 Exalted Deathbringer, 7 units chosen in any combination from the following list, which include the Aspiring Deathbringer, or Slaughter Priest, or Skull Grinder, or Bloodstoker, or Bloodsecrator. Now the abilities, there are two of them, and they are so that they might maintain their power and ascend further in Khorne's favor. The warriors of Gor Chosen are constantly having against each other to perform even ever greater acts of slaughter. If a Gor Chosen model is within 12 inches of at least 2 or more models from the Gor Chosen Battalion, add 1 to its hit rolls. The next ability is add 1 to the attacks characteristics of all their melee weapons. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Brass Stampede. It includes 0 to 1 Lords of Khorne on a Juggernaut, and then 3 units of Mighty Skull Crushers. The abilities, there are 3 of them, and they go: if the Brass Stampede contain the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the units from the Brass Stampede in each of your hero phases. Only roll a 2 or more, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds as they crush beneath the Juggernaut's herd of Stampede hoofs. The maximum number of units is 7. And the second ability is, if any units in either army have been wiped out, the Brass Stampede add 3 to their charge rolls. The last ability is, if a unit of Murder's Charge ability is within 3 inches of another unit of Brass Stampede, you do not need to roll a dice. It automatically inflicts D3 mortal wounds, or D6 if the Mighty Skull Crusher units have 6 or more models, as enemies are trampled to a bloody pulp. Alright, so the next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Dark Feast. Now it consists of 1 Slaughter Priest, 1 Blood Stoker, and 3 to 6 units of Blood Reavers. There are 2 abilities, and the first one is, as long as he is alive, add 1 to the attack characteristics of any melee weapon used by the unit from the battalions whenever it's selected to attack. The next ability is, the Bloodsoaker drives the warriors to a dark frenzy, ever onwards with the barbs of his lashes. Units from this battalion within 12 inches of him do not need to take battle shock test. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Skulltake. It consists of 1 Bloodstoker, 2 to 3 units of Skull Reapers, 1 to 2 units of Goraths, and then 0 to 2 units chosen in any following combinations, which include either Blood Warriors or Blood Reavers. The 2 abilities are Skull Reapers from the Skulltake within 12 inches of a Bloodstoker are Frenzied Fury. If the wound roll for a Skull Reaper in a Frenzied Fury is 6 or higher, add 1 to the damage characteristics of the weapon they are using. If the Skulltake contain the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, then this ability applies to the Skulltake units that are within 12 inches of the Bloodstoker. The next ability is, the witless beasts are mad and hungry, and the following warriors are closely and pounce upon anything else that comes close. The Skulltake's Goraths make 8 attacks with the claws and fangs rather than 5, as long as their unit is within 6 inches of any battalion Skull Reapers. Just gain additional attacks, 3 additional attacks, as long as they stay within 6 inches of Skull Reapers. Sounds good to me. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Red Headsman. It consists of 1 Aspiring Deathbringer, 1 Skull Grinder, 3 to 6 units of Blood Warriors. Now the abilities are, at the start of your first hero phase, pick up to 3 heroes and or monsters in your opponent's army and declare them to be worthy foes. Your opponent can re-roll failed hit rolls for attacks made by those units. For each worthy foe they slay, the Red Headsmen add 1 to the attack characteristics of their melee weapons for the rest of the game. If the Red Headsmen contain the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, then you can pick up to 5 heroes and or monsters worthy of the foes instead. The second ability is, Red Headsmen always count as being within range of their Skull Grinder's Altar of Skulls ability. In addition, if the Skull Grinder slays a worthy foe, see above, the range of his Altar Skulls ability is doubled. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Bloodbound Warband. It consists of 1 Aspiring Deathbringer, 1 Blood Secrator, 3 units of Blood Warriors, 1 to 2 units of Blood Reavers, and 1 unit of Skull Reapers. The 2 abilities are: if at least 3 units from the Bloodbound Warband are within 3 inches of an enemy unit at the start of your hero phase, Khorne's Blessing manifests as a squall of blood and gore which falls onto your next hero phase. While the blood rain is falling, Khorne units in your army do not need to take Battle Shock test. The next ability is: when units from the Bloodbound Warband make attacks in any turn they charge, add 1 to the attack characteristics of all melee weapons they use. If the Bloodbound Warband contain the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, you can also reroll Felled Wound rolls of a 1 for units from this battalion in the combat phase of any turn in which they charged. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Bloodforge. It consists of 1 Skull Grinder, 2 to 4 units of Wrathmongers, 1 to 3 units of Blood Warriors. Now, the abilities are, there are 2 of them. The abilities are: for the Bloodforge, attack has ever been the best from the defense. For the blood they spill hardens upon the flesh until the proof against all but the sharpest of blades. When you make save rolls for this unit in the combat phase, ignore enemy Ren characteristics unless it's 2 or better. The next ability is: roll a dice for each enemy model within 3 inches of the Bloodforged model at the start of each of your hero phases. On a roll of a 6, you can immediately attack, but not pile in, with all of the melee weapons of the enemy model being rolled for as though it was part of the army. The model can attack its own unit and even itself. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Gor Pilgrims, and what it consists of is 1 Blood Secrator, 2 to 3 Slaughter Priest, 1 to 2 Blood Warriors, and 1 to 2 Blood Reavers. The 2 abilities are: the Slaughter Priest that led the murderous congregation of the Gor Pilgrims are amongst the most devoted of their bloody creed. You can choose to re-roll the dice when attempting to blood-fueled prayers or blood blessings of Khorne with the Slaughter Priest from the Gor Pilgrims. Basically, to re-roll. The next ability is: increase the range of the Portal of Skulls ability of the battalion's Blood Secrator by 6 for each of the battalion's Slaughter Priests that are within 8 inches of him when he opens the Portal of Skulls. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne Slaughterborne. It consists of 1 Exalted Deathbringer, 2 to 4 units of Skull Reapers, and 1 to 3 units of Blood Warriors. The 1 ability is: thought at first glance, it seems that the Slaughterborne will hurl themselves into the fray to protect their lord. Their actions are more often born simply of an unquenchable thirst to prove themselves in battle and raise their stature of Khorne's eye. If your general is a Khorne hero and they are within 3 inches of enemy units in the hero phase, any Slaughterborne unit that are within 12 inches of the general can immediately attempt to charge those enemy units. Any Slaughterborne units that make a successful charge in this manner can immediately pile in, and each model in the unit can make a single attack with one of their melee weapons during the hero phase. Protect the general. The next War Scroll is a Warscroll Battalion. It is called the Khorne Gortied, and what it consists of is 1 Mighty Lord of Khorne, 1 Slaughterborne Battalion, which must contain 3 units of Blood Warriors. It also can include 0 to 1 Gore Chosen Battalions, but it must contain 3 to 7 Warscroll Battalions chosen in any combination from the following list: Bloodbound Warband, Bloodforge, Brass Stampede, Dark Feast, Gor Pilgrims, Skullseeker, Red Headsman, any number of additional Khorne Bloodbound units or Warscroll Battalions. Also, if the Gortied contains the maximum number of battalions, it gains the Khorne Cares Not from whence the blood flows and the Blood God Khorne's ability on page 112. The abilities you will receive for taking all of this is: in each of your hero phases, you can pile in up to 8 inches and attack with the Gortied's Mighty Lord of Khorne. In addition, you can reroll all fail to hit rolls for the Gortied's Mighty Lord of Khorne, including any attacks made with the blood dark claws of the ferocious flesh hounds and Gizzle Maw. The next ability is, in each of your hero phases, roll a d6. You can move each Gortied unit up to the number rolled in inches. You cannot retreat or run as part of the move, but can use it to charge the enemy. Wow. The next Warscroll Battalion is called the Khorne, the Skull Fiend Tribe. And what it consists of is one Lord of Khorne on a Juggernaut. One Skull Take Battalion must contain 3 units of Skull Reapers. It also must contain 0 to 1 Gore Chosen Battalion, but it must contain 3 to 7 Warscroll Battalions chosen in any combination from the following list: Bloodbound Warband, Bloodforge, Brass Stampede, Dark Feast, Gor Pilgrims, Slaughterborne, Skull Take, Red Headsman, any number of additional core Bloodbound units or Warscroll battalions. Also, if the Skull Fiend tribe contains the maximum number of battalions, it gains the Khorne Cares Knot, from whence the blood flows, and the Blood God Scorn abilities on page 112. You do, however, get one ability. That ability is, if any units from the Skull Fiend tribe are within 3 inches of enemy heroes or monsters at the start of the hero phase, they can immediately pile in. Each model in the unit can make a single attack with one such unit with one of their melee weapons. Just more abilities to pile in and do more damage. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the overview of the Blades of Khorne, Age of Sigmar, brand new army book. I wanted to say, I'm sorry I haven't made any videos in a while. I'm planning on doing a Zeech Disciples overview as well, but it seems like a lot of other people have done so already, so I might just make a quick video of my thoughts of the army itself. But what I wanted to do with some of these videos is get the content out there so you guys can maybe paint some models and listen to some of the new rules of the Blades of Khorne. And I can't tell you how neat this book is, with all the blood tithe and all of the command traits and all of the extra items you can take and all the prayers and all the unique battalions that allow you to do so many different things, and just trying to get into combat and just fight. It's really refreshing, and it's nice to see another book like this come out. So again, if you guys like this kind of content, please leave a comment below, like and subscribe. I plan on doing another one of these when every new army comes out. I plan on doing another one of these, and I'm going to try to put it out as quickly as possible so you can see what the new books are all about and maybe learn something you haven't before. Also, I wanted to apologize if I make any mistakes or anything. Just let me know below so the whole community can hear it. But again, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you next.